Welcome to the Positive Communication Show with your host, Matthew Cooper, where crisis meets communication. Join Matthew on the journey of skills, techniques, and wisdom on empowering your communication and enriching your relationships. Matthew has been a student and practitioner of self-help skills and crisis communications for over 20 years. He owns Positive Control Systems, a crisis communication and intervention business, and teaches these skills to parents, teenagers, and professionals. Here is your host, Matthew Cooper.
On OMTimes Radio, and I wanted to welcome all of you to my show. For those of you that are here for the first time, thank you so much for entrusting me with this time for you to be able to spend with me. And for those that are returning, awesome, happy to have you back, and hope to be able to keep on producing and performing well for you and giving you good information and hopefully making it a bit more entertaining as well. Now, for those that have not been here before, I wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of what I do and how it works. My business is crisis communication. I teach different youth homes across the United States, the troubled youth industry, how to be able to better communicate with their clients. I also work with law enforcement. I've worked with military. I also have worked with health practitioners, doctors and nurses, etc. And all of these, I find a common thread. And that common thread is the way that we communicate, the words that we say, the actions that we take, all of our behavior is influencing how we're communicating with those people around us. And if we are not giving the people around us the message that we want to give them, they're going to be receiving the message that we are giving them. Does that make sense right there? Because oftentimes we may be sending out a message that we don't want them to receive, and yet we don't realize that we're sending it, because all of our behaviors are communication. An example, I wrote a book called Ninja Dating Skills, What You Wish You Would Have Learned in High School. And one of the things that surprised me years ago was when a woman smiles at me. In the past, I thought, oh, she wants me to talk to her. When, if you watch for it, the smile can go for the mouth and not the eyes. If it goes from both the mouth and the eyes, yes, they're interested, they're happy, they're friendly. If it goes to the mouth, not the eyes, it usually means I'm smiling at you, but I'm saying back off in my head. And recognizing these little signs. It's called congruence. So what is your body language saying? Are they saying, yes, come talk to me, or no, I don't want to talk to you? Because of that congruence there, and recognizing the body language that's telling me one thing while the words may be saying another thing, helping everyone around us to understand the message that we're giving off is very important. And yet we are responsible for that message, no one else. So with the trainings that I do when I'm working with these different professionals, I'm able to help them understand some of the warning signs, be able to help keep these youth, the clients of theirs, de-escalated. I also work with some facilities that are also working with drug and alcohol rehab, working with adults, working with high-functioning mental health patients. I also work with parents in working with their teenagers as well. All of these things are tying back to what I call crisis communication. See, crises happen all day long, every day. If we don't understand what a crisis is, which can be simply where we become emotionally involved and upset about something, emotionally escalated, it doesn't even have to be upset. It can be irritated, it could be jealous, it could be fearful, it could be angry and hateful. All of those emotions are all tied to becoming emotionally involved, if you will, in a situation. The more we become involved in that situation, we become less objective, less able to see it from, if you will, an emotional distance, and instead we become more and more involved, which is more subjective. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I do work with these different clients, and I had a great little experience yesterday with my son's teacher. He's in 5th grade, and his teacher was having some challenges with him in class. He was getting quite upset over some of the homework he was doing. And because my business is about being able to recognize these, what we call warning signs of escalation, this was right up my alley. I was, okay, this is great. I get to do something here, and I get to then hopefully make an impression on the teacher that might be able to be positive, and then another reason why, yes, this is not just all altruistic here. I'll have my other motives. My other motive was to hopefully be able to have a contact in the school district to better be able to serve the school district, having the teachers learn these skills to work with their students. So I spent over an hour and a half talking to this teacher. When it was initially going to be a 5-minute miniature parent conference, it turned into an hour and a half, teaching her, lecturing, as well as being able to demonstrate some of these techniques. And the first half of it was simply being able to work with my son with her sitting right there, being able to sometimes stop and explain a little bit what I was doing. First off, he was having some challenges. He was so frustrated because he didn't understand. That was the biggest thing that came through, was he didn't understand the directions that were given by the teacher. Instead of trying to ask a question or trying to do some of the work even though he didn't understand, he simply chose not to do anything, which I completely understand. I've done the same thing. If I don't understand what it is that I'm doing, I will lock up, I will stop, I will freeze, and it prevents me from being able to move forward. So I will do other things to keep myself busy rather than actively engaged and able to make some headway on the project that I'm working on. It doesn't matter what project it is. Oftentimes it's been business, others it's in schooling when I'm going to school. I'm finishing up one of my degrees here coming in February. I also have found this dealing with some of the, for example, contacting or doing some marketing. If I don't truly understand it as well as I'd like to, I may be a little more procrastinating in my work. So recognizing that pattern that I've had, I was able to recognize where my son was at. And so I talked to him about it. Say, okay, this is what's going on. Do you understand? No, it's just frustrating. I don't like it. I hate this stuff. Okay. Well, I've been frustrated plenty in my schoolwork. It's not the most fun thing to do. He's doing research right now. And that research, what it is he has a book or a couple of different books to read from. He has to pick out information and then be able to write that down after he's taken it out of the text, write it down, and then have it eventually in a brochure, which he's going to be putting together over the next few weeks. He didn't understand how to do it. So I went back through and I step by step took him through each piece and then explained to him what was going on, giving him the information so he can now have answers. It was, from some, I'm sure some people's perspective, tedious that I would take that much time to be able to explain it to him in that way. And yet, part of what I do is I adapt my communication style to the people that I work with. I cannot expect them to be able to meet me in my world. I need to move to where they are. I need to be able to communicate where they are. Richard Bandler, one of the fathers of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, he and John Grinder, they were both the co-founders of NLP. Richard Bandler said that we cannot see the world as it is. We cannot see the world as it is. We can only see it how we are. So we cannot see the world as it is. We can only see the world how we are. So that means that we can only see from our perspective. We cannot see it the way it truly is. We can only see it through, if you will, the filter of our own mind and our own eyes. Because of that, when we try and communicate with someone else, if we are attempting to communicate to them from our perspective, they may not understand because their perspective may be so different than ours. And if we attempt to force them, it's not going to work very well. It won't work because when we try and force them to understand our perspective, which I find is silly, trying to get louder and yelling and even trying to physically persuade someone, with children, the corporal punishment, spanking, etc. I experienced that when I was younger. I even used it as a young father and realized, wow, this is not working. I need to find something better, which I have found and have been using for many years now. Because of that, we go off of what we learned as children. It may not be the most effective, but that's what we learned. If we can find something better, please use it, apply it. Don't expect that what you have is the end-all be-all. It's not the only option that's available to you. And so working with my son, with this teacher, I was able to show her step by step how I was going through adapting my communication to fit him. Not mine, him. Now, in NLP, they talk about the 5 primary learning modalities. Okay, you have auditory, which is hearing and also speaking; visual, which is being able to see something and then translate that into words where another person can now also be able to understand your perspective through the words you're using, so they can quote unquote see the same thing. Then we have kinesthetic, which I break into 2 groups: kinesthetic physical and kinesthetic emotional. So physical would mean the bodily sensations you have in that reference, and then the kinesthetic emotional would be the emotions you are feeling, not just your physical sensations, but also the emotions and the emotional state which you're in. We also have gustatory, which is taste, and olfactory, which is smell. With these 5 primary learning modalities, understanding each one of those can help us to better communicate with people and understand where they are at. That way we are seeing it from their perspective, through their eyes, rather than trying to bring them into our world so we can see it from our perspective and force them to see it from our perspective. So much, much better, much better. So in doing so, explained to her that my son's very kinesthetic, and then explained, so she would understand the reference, why I was changing my words. I was changing the words that I was using to better interact with my son in a way that he could get. He could really grab a hold of it. This is kinesthetic. I mean, remember I mentioned the kinesthetic physical and kinesthetic emotional. So we have him understanding physically what's going on, and then being able to understand with that kinesthetic physical, I would say words such as, hey, you know what, I can really feel where you're coming from. I want to help you get a grasp of what's happening here, and I want you to be able to work through this. So through working with it, we can really make sure this will be very effective for you. It makes sense? Okay. So by being able to understand his perspective, I was able to then connect with him on that, if you want to call it the intellectual level, where he's listening to me, he's trusting me, and now it makes sense to him. As we open the book, a physical action. I'm not just telling him about it. I am physically doing it. I'm picking the book up, opening it, showing him on the page with the physical aspect, that kinesthetic aspect. I'm meeting him on his ground. Break is coming up right now. Be back in just a few minutes, where we'll continue.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Hello, I'm Miriam Knight of New Consciousness Review, inviting you to my new show where I interview the rising stars of the conscious awakening. We'll explore the many faces of consciousness in action and intriguing perspectives on life, the universe, and everything in between. Join us each Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern on the Rising Stars Show.
The name is Bond, James Bond.
No, the name is Joe, The Joe Show. And we are returning back for our 9th season here on OMTimes Radio. So tune in every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, on OMTimes.com/mobile. You can take us wherever you go. Yeah!
Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Welcome back. This is Matthew Cooper with the Positive Communication Show on OMTimes Radio, OTR-FM. All right, just finished the break, before that we were talking about my son and the fifth grade teacher of his, and how I was able to, in, if you will, the format of a parent-teacher conference, being able to speak to my son, helping him to coach him through using his strengths, where he is strongest, understanding his communication style, and being able to then adapt my instruction to him so he could understand the information that he was supposed to be learning and then applying in his class. I mentioned they're going over, going over the different areas of geography. He was talking about New England and some of the issues, or I won't say issues, that time, and then being able to write the information down. He didn't have a reference. He didn't understand the material that he had. He didn't understand the instructions that he was given, and he didn't understand how to be able to fulfill what the teacher was asking for. So it's very frustrating to him. So after adapting my communication style to his and being able to find what works best for him, I was able to make some breakthroughs with him. And the teacher was surprised because he'd gone from arms crossed, chin down, kind of huffy, not looking at me, to where his shoulders had dropped, his hands opened up, he was talking to me, I was explaining it, he was asking questions, he was being actively engaged. So it's very beneficial, really worked great. Really worked great. So understanding the communication of my son helped me to be able to then connect with him. Well, then in working with his teacher's like, wow, I could even see how I could use some of this with my other students too. I'm like, well, I hope so. That's what I'd like to see happening here. Because when the other students are able to understand what's going on, it makes a huge difference in how they are able to connect with their teacher. That's not just the teacher to the students, it's with the students to the teacher as well, where they are now going to be able to have that connection. It really is important for the teachers to understand these skills to be able to connect with their students. If not, they're not even really a teacher. To me, a teacher who can't teach or teach effectively to a variety of different students is not really a teacher. They're a person who's just presenting the information. To teach is a skill. It's not an occupation. It may have a setting, if you want, like normal on a dryer. Okay, okay, I'm a teacher. So what? Do you know how to teach? That's the key. Okay? You may have the occupational name tag that says, I are a teacher. However, if you cannot effectively teach, then you are not doing your job or your occupation a service by being able to help everyone else realize I am helping people to learn. I'm not just presenting information and expecting them to learn. I am taking the information I have and I am then able to customize the lessons that I teach to them and their strengths and their weaknesses and best be able to help them understand that. Now, this teacher is young. She's only been teaching, I think, the past year or so. She may not have learned a lot of these skills in her classes and her schooling. From what I understand and from my experience in the past 8 years of teaching other individuals how to use these skills, I've had psychotherapists who've been psychotherapists for 15, 20 years. I've had counselors. I've had directors of companies. I've had people with doctorate degrees. I've worked with all different kinds of people. And very, very few of them have all of these skills. Even the therapists that I've worked with who work with these different troubled youth and these other different occupations, the therapists have most of these skills. However, they don't have all of them. And oftentimes when I'm working with these therapists, they're like, yeah, keep going. You're doing great. You're teaching this information. You are getting it out there. Awesome. And I even learned a little bit too. I'm like, okay, I really feel good if they say they learned a little bit. Because these are skills which are almost, I call them ninja skills, because they're secret, they're hidden. It's almost like they're not available to the general public. And if I'm able to present them in such a way people can understand, fantastic. I love it. Absolutely love it. And what I'm wanting to start doing, I have some contacts, I'm following up on them right now. In some different school districts, I want to be able to teach these skills to teachers in districts across the U.S., starting here in my home state in Utah, and now I'm wanting to be able to then, as I get more and more schools, I want to be able to share this information, have instructors that are teaching this all across the U.S. Because We need the best instructors and teachers out there. We need teachers that can teach. We need teachers that can now hone in on what their students need and avoid setting them off. Now, my son was getting really frustrated with his teacher, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? One, he's not able to connect with her. She doesn't speak, quote unquote, speak his language being the kinesthetic aspects. Also, I understand his love languages. Dr. Gary Chapman, he is a fantastic author, written the books, The 5 Love Languages. He has one for children, he has one for teenagers, for couples, for singles, and adolescents. Having all of these different books, each one is a little bit different. Each one covers a little bit more information on the love languages and how to better apply them with the age groups associated with them. And mentioning that to his teacher as well, and how I was able to change the connection that my children had with their mom, who was not able to use the same communication style as I do. She did not have this understanding until I brought it to her attention. It made a huge difference. I mean, a tremendously huge difference in how she was able to connect with her children after I was able to apply this. Before that, she didn't have that. She didn't have that understanding and that connection. So when you're able to understand the person's primary learning modality, either auditory, visual, or kinesthetic. Those are the main ones. Sometimes gustatory and olfactory, but mostly auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. And then tie in the love languages. It is a recipe for success. I have had very, very good results by consistently using that with my children, as well as teaching people over the past 8 years. Now, additionally, in speaking with her, the teacher, great lady, by the way, she was really wanting to understand, and then recognizing that when teachers have the ability to share this information with their students, not by teaching her students how to do this, is through her own understanding of these skills and then sharing that skills with her students, the students will respect her more, they will trust her more, and they will listen to her more. And how she deals with crises is super important. And I mentioned to her that oftentimes when dealing with a crisis, teachers, and I'm sure she understood this, I didn't want to point fingers at anyone, teachers will oftentimes attempt to take control of the situation by either being too meek or by being too overpowering. I like to work on, if you will, taking control by asking questions. Questions? Yes. Questions are powerful. Instead of asking a person, why are you doing this? Well, you're using a question. Who, what, when, where, why, and how are the main, if you want to call them the question words. So by asking that question, who, what, when, where, why, and how, if you're using those, it's not going to be very effective if you're asking them a question which will cause them to be defensive. If you instead ask a question such as, what can I do for you? Or what's going on here? How can I help? Do you understand what we're speaking about? All of these questions like that are super important in the ability that we have to connect with the other people. Because if you want to have deep communication and connection with someone, you have to connect with them. And it's not a shallow connection. Most shallow connections are a connection such as the person that you see each day as you're walking past work, you recognize them. Hey, how you doing? Oh, great. How are you? Oh, doing great. Boom. That's it. That's all the connection you have. That's very shallow. It's not going to be a deep connection. Whereas somebody that you can talk to about your childhood, being able to share back and forth what you did when you were younger, what you enjoyed most about summer, or what was the most exciting family vacation you went on. This creates a deep connection, a level of rapport where you're able to bond with this person at an emotional level. By having that emotional connection, you're able to make a very strong bond with this person to where they're now going to trust you. They're going to like you because you know about them, they know about you. You see parts of you in them, they see parts of themselves in you, and now you have this connection. It's almost like I use my hands when I speak, so it's kind of hard when I'm not having that. I also like to use a blackboard or a whiteboard so I can draw on to show people. It's almost like a spike driven down. A shallow connection is just on the surface, but a spike goes down and it really gets emotionally that deep connection to where you're now a part of that person. When you have that deep connection with them, you're able to do so many things that allow you to be trusted by them, loved by them, and accepted by them. When you have that kind of connection with them, they will listen to you, they'll trust you, and they're more willing to accept the words you say as being true. Which is also many times why when a person betrays that trust, you thought there was a connection and they betrayed that, it also causes you to feel so strongly negatively against them. So we need to make sure we're making proper connections with these people. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because with my son and his teacher, she didn't understand a lot of these different aspects of the connections and the communication. And when she understood them, she's realizing, oh, okay, that's how I can be able to better connect with some of these other students that I'm having some challenges with. I said, yes, exactly. Because she's doing the best she can, and she's doing a great job. Some students, though, are more difficult, more of a challenge. When I looked at the troubled youth industry, and most of the youth in the industry, about 80% of them are kinesthetic learners. That means that the ones who are auditory-based and visual-based learners, those are the ones that are getting what they need from the teachers. Most teachers do not give a kinesthetic outlook or a perspective to their teaching. And so the kids are not able to have that same customized teaching to them, and they feel left out. They're going to be more difficult to work with. They're going to have more emotional outbursts. They're going to have the physical fidgeting, and they're not able to sit still. These are also some of the kids I'm sure the parents want to give Ritalin. Ritalin is not the answer. Understanding the child makes a huge difference in giving them an answer. Recognizing what their connection is, what their perspective is, what their learning style is, and then being able to tailor your communication to them, it makes all the difference in the world. Does it fix it completely? No. It does take care of a lot of the problems and now gives you a better way of being able to handle it. Now, just because I'm mentioning this doesn't mean that you should be taking 5 or 6 hours each day with one specific child. Oh, no. When you learn these skills, it becomes very quick. You learn very quickly how to adapt to a person. You hear a few sentences. Oh, this is how you connect. Great. And when a teacher sees her children every single day, or his children every single day, he's going to have a much better idea of how to better connect with them. Think about that over the break. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Stick around.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hi, this is Angela Levesque, host of Entanglement Radio. Join me Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science and conscious healing. Entanglement Radio, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Transcendent talk for the conscious mind.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Welcome back. This is Matthew Cooper with the Positive Communication Show on OMTimes Radio. That is OTR-FM. Just finished the last segment speaking about, continuing I should say, the discussion about how teachers can better communicate with their students. Now, as I mentioned, I was talking about the auditory, visual, and kinesthetic, the primary learning modalities. I also mentioned Dr. Gary Chapman with his 5 love languages and how that is tremendous in being able to help the teachers, as well as parents, to be able to better connect with and understand their students. Another tremendous tool, which I taught this young lady, this teacher of my son's, was that I use what's called the crisis communication continuum. This communication is a series of bell curves. Now, these bell curves, what's so powerful about the bell curves is that each one of them does not have to stay where they're at. What do you mean? If you go up, you can come down, and there is nothing wrong with going down. You do not want to escalate before the other person. It just causes more issues, more pain, more problems. By being able to lack that impetus of having that movement forwards of you're the one that's angry, you're starting to escalate, you're the one that's now getting upset and imposing some sort of a punishment on them. Oh, not cool. Punishments are something that you give them because you're angry, rather than a consequence, which is they giving themselves a choice. Okay, when they make this choice, that is what you enforce. You do not give it to them. You simply enforce a choice which they made. This is an extremely powerful differentiation, because oftentimes when you have a young person, especially for me, I was even chatting with a lady a couple of weeks back about her 3-year-old. And with her 3-year-old, they want choice. They want to do it themselves. They want to have power because the parent's big and they have the power, and the child wants the same thing. How do you give that to them while at the same time being able to guide them, to direct them? They're called presuppositions. You presuppose something is going to happen. For example, if I am speaking to a 3-year-old, and I say, okay, I have these 2 sets of clothes for you. We have this one or this one. Which one do you want to wear? Well, I don't want to wear those. I understand you don't want to wear them. I also know that you want to go and watch TV, or you want to go and use this electronic device, or you want to go see grandma later today, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, because of that, these are the choices you have. And if you want to go do those, then you can do this. If not, well, that's too bad. That's your choice, though. You get to make that choice. You can choose which one do you want, and you can go to grandma's, or you don't choose and you don't get to go to grandma's. So you're giving them the option. When you're giving them the option, you're not forcing them. What you are is you are channeling them, so now they have a set of choices which you are okay with. Once you get that and they can make a choice, they feel empowered. You have helped them make that choice, and then you're also happy with the final outcome. Great. So now you've gotten them to be able to move, hopefully, along this path of directing them towards the outcome or the behavior you're looking for. So with the teacher, I spoke of how my son was acting in these ways and he wasn't doing his homework. Okay, no problem. And I mentioned Keva, or my son, and said, hey, you know what, bud, you don't have to do your homework. You don't. You don't have to do your homework at all. However, I do know that you like to use these electronic devices. You love playing your games. You love doing this. You love doing that, right? Well, you don't have to play those either. You don't have to do that. You don't, bud. So here's your choice. You can either do your homework and then you can play, or you don't do your homework. That's okay. You don't have to go and play either. Now, I'm going to be talking to your teacher, and his teacher then verified, yes, that they're going to help me, or she was going to be communicating with me, and then she would know what's going on, and she'd be able to share it with me. When that's the case, now what choices does he have? Oh, crud. You mean she's talking to my dad now? Dang. Okay. And now all of a sudden, he's having that understanding that there's going to be follow-through, because I didn't know about this issue in the past. Now there's follow-through, and when she and I are working together, now he has to say, okay, is it worth it for me to not do this? Is Dad willing to be consistent? Which I am, and he knows that I am, and I mean what I say. And then his teacher said, oh, okay, that's pretty powerful. He said, yes, it is. It's very powerful. One, they're working together, but two, it's also being able to have both of them on the same team working towards that common goal. And you notice what I said. I said, you don't have to do your homework. He realizes that he now has a choice, and he gets to make that choice. And then here's another very powerful thing. I got him in on the decision-making process. I said, do you understand this? Yes. And do you agree, or do you agree that you have this responsibility for your homework, and if you do it, you get to play, and if you don't, you don't get to. Do you understand that? Yes. And you agree to this? Yes. Boom. Now he's locked in, and he now has to take responsibility for his actions. Super powerful right there. Super powerful. When they take responsibility for their actions, now you as a parent or you as a teacher, all you have to do is enforce their choices. Powerful. Hugely powerful. You are now enforcing their choices. You are no longer the bad guy or girl. You are simply enforcing their choices, and you remind them. This is another powerful thing. You have to remind them, this was your choice. I did this, this, and this to attempt to assist you. You chose not to, and this is the consequence. And the way that we go about doing that, I mentioned a few minutes ago, is the crisis communication continuum. There are 4 levels to it. 5, if you want to go for the baseline is voluntary cooperation. That is where they very happily will do what they're supposed to. Just remind them and they do their chores. They'll do their homework. They'll do whatever they're supposed to. Hey, did you get your history lesson done? No, I didn't. I'll get it done right now. Huh. That was pretty easy. I like that. Voluntary cooperation. Okay? And that's where you don't have to do anything. That's just a baseline for understanding where you're starting from. From there, they may start to say, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do my homework. Okay? And that's when you'll start with a request for cooperation. With that request for cooperation, what you are doing is you are asking them. You notice it's a request. It is not a demand. It is not an ultimatum. It is a request. And you use a couple of different things. One, you use respect, and the second one is you use appropriate words, such as please, thank you. Hey, can you please get your homework done? They can choose yes or no. By you asking appropriately, now they can choose to be able to work with you or not. It's now their choice. You have made that effort. You are now going through and following these steps. Can you please do this? If they say, no, I'm not going to do it, I don't have to do my homework. You know what? I understand that there are some things that you need to do as time passes, and some of those are your chores. So, hey, could you please do your chores right now or do your homework? So that is the first level of request for cooperation. If they say, okay, well, yeah, I'll do my homework. Okay, boom, they go. Now that bell curve, it drops back down. Now you're the baseline of voluntary cooperation. You are golden. If that doesn't work, though, do not start to make threats. Do not demand. Do not say, if you don't, this is going to happen. Because then you are stepping over those boundaries. You are now attempting to force your authority on them. It's much more beneficial. Take a breath and stay at that request for cooperation level unless they continue to resist and resist. And they say, you can't make me. I'm not going to do it. Then you can remind them. Say, hey, your chores are supposed to be done at this time, right? Yes. Okay. Well, if they're not done at this time, it's not going to be good for you. So you need to do your chores right now. You notice I didn't say, I need you to do your chores. That's a very big difference. If you need something from them, they can gain power by refusing you what you're wanting. Whereas if you say, you need to, you're putting it all squarely on them. They have the responsibility. Now they are required to take responsibility for their own actions and what they're doing with their time. If that doesn't work and they continue to resist and they're not going to budge, actually they escalate even more, that's when I'll use the next level. My apologies really quick. We had the request for cooperation. The second one was mandate for compliance. That was the one where you said you need to. You're still using please, you're still being respectful, but you need to do this. Okay, that's the mandate for compliance. So the next one, number 3, is the statement of imminent consequences. This is not a threat. No, never. This is not a threat. This is a statement of what will happen if you continue to take action the way you have previously. Okay? A statement of imminent consequences. With the statement of imminent consequences, what's so important about it is you don't use them as an example. If you use them as an example, remember what happened last time? Oh, you're going to get it when your father comes home. No, that's a threat. That's a threat. Do not use that. I mentioned to the teacher instead something such as this, that, hey, remember this kid Bobby? Well, Bobby wasn't able to have his free time for reading, and he also, let me back up just a tiny bit. With this statement of imminent consequence, I'd also like to find out more information about the person and have leverage. Leverage is hugely important with my son. He likes to get these they call dollars or class dollars, these points. So that way he earns these class dollars he can use to purchase things in class that they have they called different auctions at different times of the year. So he can bid with this classroom dollars. Okay, so when he has these classroom dollars he can bid with, that allows him to have power. I'm making money, yes. And he can then buy things, whether it's candy, whether it's other small toys or other things they have that are on the auction. So he really, really enjoys that. Talking to teacher, like, oh, okay, we can use that as leverage. So when we use that statement of imminent consequences, we can say, okay, you know what, bud, I understand you're wanting to get these dollars, and that's very good, because when you do that, you're able to get these benefits. Great. However, I understand also that you don't like doing your homework. And you agreed that you would do your homework to your teacher, right? Right. Okay. Well, part of the consequence in class then, I think, would be a good idea is if you don't do what you're supposed to, for each time that you have that assignment that you didn't turn in, you have to give your teacher back one of those classroom dollars. Ooh, he did not like that at all. Ooh, he did not like that. The teacher's nodding her head. Oh, that's a really good idea. Oh, yeah, that would work really well. And then I spoke to him about it, helped him understand it. I said, hey, you know what? If you turn your homework in, you don't have to give her any. And actually, she'll give you some more, won't she? And she nodded her head. Yeah. Okay. See, so that way you're able to keep on making more of those. Now I'm explaining to him that he can keep on getting these dollars that he's wanting, these classroom dollars, and he can keep on accruing those if he continues to do his homework. Now it's all squarely in his court. However, I said, if you don't turn your homework in, dang it, you're probably going to have to give your teacher one of those dollars back. He did not like that. And yet what it did in him is it helped him to be able to give him the tools where he is voluntarily choosing to take the responsibility to say, okay, I will turn my homework in. I will agree with you. And when he agreed with me on that, he's now bound, and I can go back to that and say, remember, with the statement of imminent consequences, you want to get those classroom dollars, don't you? So make sure you get your homework done right now. Come on, let's get your homework done. You can get those classroom dollars, and then you can go and buy stuff later in the year. Very, very powerful, having leverage and understanding that. Break is coming right up. Chat with you in just a few minutes.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. Join Elliot Jolish, the business therapist, each Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Elliot Jolish Hour, as he interviews business experts on your behalf. And you're invited to email your business questions to questions@ecjgroup.com for answers, live, on air every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Elliot Jolish Hour.
Do you want to be a better communicator? Do you want to better connect with the important people in your life? Do you want to enrich your relationships? If so, join me, Matthew Cooper, on the Positive Control System Show every Wednesday evening at 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on OMTimes Radio. I'll meet you there.
Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Welcome back. This is Matthew Cooper with the Positive Communication Show on OMTimes Radio, OTR-FM. Now, for those of you that heard the the different commercials going on. One of them was for the Positive Control System show. That is the name my show used to be, and I am in the process of putting together a new commercial for that, so that way it will be accurate. However, yes, all the rest of the information is exactly the same, being able to understand and better develop your communication and your relationships. So continuing onwards with this riveting information about my son and his teacher. Now, for those of you that are teachers and that you do teach and you do work with youth on a regular basis or even working with other clients, this is priceless information. When you understand how to use this, it is incredibly effective in being able to help your students, as well as if you have other clients you're working with, understanding where they're coming from and why there may be resistance. It's very, very important to be able to have this information. Now, when I'm dealing with this, I mentioned right before the break that we were talking about how to bring leverage, and then also being able to understand, talking about the statement of imminent consequences. Now, the statement of imminent consequences is very powerful, where you're letting them know that if they keep doing what they're doing, this is what's going to happen. And also being able to give a reference of, remember this person and how they had these problems, these issues. If you want to be able to fix that problem, you need to do this or that or whatever it may be. Really, really powerful. Okay. So very, very strong, very powerful to recognize that. Now, after that statement of imminent consequences, if that person continues to push, whether it's a student, whether it's a child, whether it's a parent, whether it's a spouse or anybody else, okay, when working with this, there are certain boundaries we need to set. This is one of the boundaries. And if they pass that boundary, one example, for example, is you're supposed to teach, or you're supposed to turn in your homework by 5 o'clock by this certain day, or else you don't get the points for it, and you then will fail that, or you will get a reduced amount of points from it, whatever that may be. And what you would do as a teacher, you're letting the student know, hey, okay, I let you know, I tried to help you, I encouraged you, I talked to you about your homework, I even let you know that if you keep doing this, this is what the consequence is going to be, right? Right. Sometimes they'll just fold their arms because they already know that they're wrong. They're not going to like it. They already agreed to follow through. They chose not to. So now they're in the wrong. They're guilty of having broken that agreement, and now there's consequences for that. You are not punishing them, period. Please understand this. You are not punishing. You never punish. What you do is you enforce their choice. You had an agreement with them. They chose not to follow through. You are enforcing the choice which they made. That in itself is also incredibly powerful. So when you enforce that choice which they made, and you're able to say, okay, you were supposed to do this, you chose not to. Because of that, you chose not to, now you are responsible for that choice. Part of that, with that end result, that fourth step is verbal enforcement of consequences. Okay, so we have starting out as request for cooperation, number 1. 2 is mandate for compliance. 3 is statement of imminent consequences. And number 4 is the verbal enforcement of those consequences. So I would go about saying, all right, I made these efforts to try and help you, correct? Yes, okay. And you knew that your homework was supposed to be due by 5 o'clock today, right? Yes. And what time is it right now? Well, it's after 5 o'clock. All right. So because of that, your choice was to not do it. I did all these efforts to help you, and you still chose not to. So now the consequence is that you are now required to pay me one of these school classroom dollars, or whatever it would be, whatever that consequence you agreed would be beforehand. And then you follow through with it. They may not like it. They may yell. They may scream. They may throw a fit. Reiterate and remind them, this was your choice. I didn't choose to do this. You made the choice. We agreed on this, and then you chose not to follow through. And if they say, well, I didn't mean it. Oh, so you were lying. Oh, I think we talked about a consequence for lying too, didn't we? All of a sudden, okay, now it helps them to understand that you are not attempting or trying or being the bad guy. You are simply enforcing their choices which they made, choices which they voluntarily made to get into the agreement with you in the first place. And because of that, you're simply following up and helping them to be a responsible member of our community. You are helping them, you are training them, you are giving them lessons and opportunities to learn, to be a responsible person in the community. It seems from my perspective that this is being lost with our present generation. Our present generation of being able to say, okay, no child left behind. What about the ones that are trying to move forward and you don't let them move forward? You don't want to leave any of them behind? Well, what if they're not able to keep up with the rest? Are you going to drag everyone down because of some students? If those students need help, get them the help they need. And yet do not leave them without any help at all. Do not let them drag everyone else down with them, though. I'm not saying this is going on necessarily. However, I have heard of circumstances in the past where they would, when they were first starting that no child left behind idea, where they would prevent everyone else from moving faster because of that student. In my opinion, I think just the same way that we're customizing the communication skills, that the teachers should also be able to have the tools necessary and the training to be able to customize the teaching styles they have for their children in their classes. The same way that I customize to my people that I train and that I do my instructions with, I have them for 2 days, about 16 hours over those 2 days. And I have to watch them. I have to customize what I'm doing to make the most sense to them. I ask questions. I watch, especially when I teach my physical skills. Physical skills for the defensive actions you might need to take if a student decides they're going to attack you or if they're attacking someone else. We need to be able to have skills for that in the youth industry. In the school industry, okay, in our schools, you don't want the teachers being able to put their hands on the youth. Okay, having a very strict hands-off policy can be good. However, if the students choose to put their hands on a teacher, then the teacher should be able to use their hands and their body to get out of there. So they're not going to be attacked and they're not going to be victims. That's really, really important. Okay? I'm a very strong proponent for people being able to take that personal responsibility for their health as well as for their safety. And if you are not taking that personal responsibility for your health and safety, who will? Who will? And so when I teach these different skills, I prefer to have at least the very minimum defensive skills taught to teachers. That way, if they need to, they can be able to exit and they can get out of there and be able to hopefully find some help. If that's the case, then they can hopefully contact the office, contact the authorities, the police, whomever, and be able to deal with that very unruly student. If you use these verbal skills, many of those issues can be reduced. We've had pretty consistently over the past, from the very start of this business, over 20 years ago, those facilities that have chosen to use this program, when you're switching over from the old program they had before to this one, there's about an 80% reduction in physical restraints and violent outbursts from the students if the staff members use this program properly. I have one facility down in southern Utah. I'll just leave it at that since I have a number of them down there. It's really easy to say that. When they started with me, the previous year, they had $80,000 in workers' comp bills alone, $80,000 worth. And then the next year, I think they said they had one claim, and that was because somebody, as the HR gentleman told me, did something really stupid in class. It wasn't with the youth, where before it was constantly having issues and getting injuries for both the staff and the youth with the techniques they were using. After this, there was such a huge reduction, they were just ecstatic. So 80,000 at least savings right there. And in addition to that, they had reduction in the overall outbursts because now the staff were being trained properly. They had skills and techniques they could use to prevent it from being an issue in the first place. Very, very powerful. Being able to learn how to understand that communication is everything that we're doing. All behavior is communication. That in itself is hugely powerful. Once you recognize that your communication is going to make a difference, that you are responsible for it, you can now consciously begin to make changes to it and make it better. Once you're consciously making those choices and changes, now you can apply those conscious decisions to working with those people around you, which is what I did many years ago when I got divorced. Ex-wife, she left. I got the kids, the house, the dog, and the car. Because of that, I had to figure out, okay, I'm working with my kids. What's going on? This is tough. I'm the only one in charge of them. I'm the only one that is now responsible for them, their health and safety, and their emotional well-being. Wow. Talk about being able to put me on stress. Very stressful. And yet that was one of the best things that could ever happen to me. I was put into the position where I was required to. I had to listen. I had to learn. I had to figure out what's going on with my children and better be able to connect with them as a parent so I could be the dad that I always wanted to be. I wasn't always the best dad back in those days. I wasn't a bad dad. I wasn't the best dad, though. And while I won't say that I am the best dad right now, from what I've heard, the feedback from my own children as well as from family members who've known me throughout the years and seen the changes that I've gone through with my life, I do know that I am a much better dad, and I'm a good dad. I'm a great dad compared to how I used to be. It is an ongoing work in progress where I am working to be the best person that I can be. My master, my martial arts master, has a saying that I really like and I've adopted because oftentimes I feel inadequate. I don't feel like I can do everything. And he says that we're all doing the best we can with what we have. Some days that best is better, other days it's not quite as good, and yet we are all doing the best we can with what we have. And I would like to encourage all of you to do the best you can with what you have. As Mahatma Gandhi says, we must become the change we want to see in the world. If we're not going to step up and be that example, who will? Please do something in your lives to be that example this week, and I will catch you on the flip side.